Hello, everybody, and welcome to another broadcast by Racing Club International. Today, we have an awesome race coming at you. We have Silverstone here, obviously, if you can't tell from the screen, and this is a GT3 car, but oh wait, what is this? Also a GT4 car of the Wolf Matushka Motorsport sitting here in the pit lane. So what does that mean, ladies and gentlemen? It means a multi-class race. That's right, GT3 and GT4 cars for the first time out at Silverstone. Should be a very exciting race. And of course, we have our Thursday championship upcoming that's going to have this every week here pretty shortly. GT3, GT4. I believe that one will be starting at Misano on Thursday, but for now we have Silverstone. Hello everybody, my name is Mike Jones. I will bring you the cameras today for this stream, and joining me here in the box we have Mr. George Smith. Maybe we do not have Mr. George Smith.
Sorry, Mike, my audio just cut out for a second, and yeah, I am here with you and looking forward to the Silverstone event, of course, the mixed multi-class coming out, and that's going to be exciting for me because I just love having the mixtures of the classes on track, and being the pro split, all the drivers driving here are ultra talented. So, Mike, I'm amped, and Silverstone is definitely a track that I haven't seen in a while, so I'm looking forward to some Silverstone action.
Yeah, same here, George, and of course we are ticking over from practice session here. Just a couple cars doing their final laps in practice. We will get into qualifying here shortly. Something that I just noticed, George, that I hadn't noticed yet, Phil Vitt is also here today representing Muck Motorsports, however, in the GT3 class. So we will have double the Pepto-Bismol Audis coming out of these guys, one in GT3, one in GT4, and I do believe I have heard our third commentator join the box just now, Nick Sednick.
Yes, I am here. How is everyone doing out there? Exciting to see a mixed class GT3, GT4 race here at RCI. I know there was a lot of drivers that have been looking forward to this since the GT4 update was announced for ACC. So this is really awesome to see. And as was alluded to, it's cool to see a racing team work in both classes. It'd be interesting to see how that shakes out in the actual race. We're actually going to flip over to qualify, which is going to be 15 minutes today, and see what kind of times they are putting down here at Silverstone.
Yeah, our cars are going to start to exit the pits, of course, like you mentioned, a mixture of classes. So it's going to be interesting to see where these guys position themselves out on track. Of course, you'd expect the GT3s to sort of leave the pit box almost earlier than the GT4s. But, if you've got a pit box closer to the exit, maybe some of the GT4's cars are going to jump out. We do see Varga out in his McLaren in the GT4. Currently looking at Johannes Thissing, the number 17 Porsche here, the GT3, obviously in the GT3 class. He will be our first car to potentially set a lap time. Of course, they are out on track for the first time. Tires and brakes are cold. They are trying to get them up to temperature to then go and set some of their faster laps, and it takes a little bit of time for those tires and brakes to get up to that optimum working temperature anyways, as we see the number 17 just kind of let Muthen get on by. He obviously doesn't yet want to get the go on. Muthen does. Michael Muthen just gets let by, and he's obviously going to try and do his best. We saw this man feature in the 6-hour qualifying yesterday with an incredible pace out at the Barcelona circuit. So interesting to see what the green Porsche is going to bring here to Silverstone tonight.
It should be a interesting race here because obviously we've got a very heavy mix of cars in here as well, which is, obviously something that we love to see. We love to see just a whole mix of cars. There's a few Bentleys, a few Porsches, but overall, as you go down the list here, and granted some of these are GT4s as well, keep that in mind, and that's a relatively new class for these guys. But just looking down the GT3 list, we have McLaren, we have Porsche, we have BMW, Porsche, Ferrari, Aston, Audi, Bentley, just everybody here, and that's fantastic to see. And it's always interesting at Silverstone because I feel like overall Silverstone is a pretty balanced track for these cars, and it's always fun to watch these guys go right here.
You aren't wrong, Mike, and we're currently going to get a nice little on-board view of Michael Muthen. He's now on a fast lap. He's just gone through Maggots, going to navigate Beckett's, and then obviously get onto the Chapel Curve to get through to the Hanger Straight, and that's all important for him to get the power down and really wind up the motor of this Porsche GT3. You'll hear him potentially shift up to 6th gear. He does, the wind comes out, but then he slams down the anchors quite late on the brakes there, slows the Porsche down, finds the apex on the exit of Stowe as he makes his way down to Vale. And the chicane on the opening lap catches a lot of drivers out, but here in qualifying, no cars to bother him. Michael Muthen makes easy work, uses all the track to the outside so that he can throw the car back through club and again get that Porsche wound up before throwing it down through Abbey. Farm Curve will be the next part for Michael Muthen to deal with, and it looks smooth and steady indeed. Down to Village again, onto the brakes before you enter the loop, which is again quite a tricky corner. You want to try and carry as much speed as you can down through Wellington Straight. You go through Aintree, almost carrying as much momentum as you can. Use all the exit that you can, as the number 18 does. Down the back straight of the Wellington Straight before getting onto the brakes again for Brooklands, which is a tough left-hander, and then the sort of sweeping hairpin of Laffield, where you just want to carry that momentum through, hold that second gear balance on number 18 car, using all the track, like we mentioned before, through Woodcote and onto the final stretch. This is where we'll see his lap time come down. Michael Muthen with a 1:57.825 to kick things off.
Yeah, that was great to see. Muthen, as was showcased at the Barcelona Qualify yesterday, a man with incredible pace, so that is awesome to see him setting the first lap time with Marcus Lawrence just a little bit behind in the 29 Bentley, only about a little over a tenth off of him.
Yeah, that is a pretty quick lap for a first lap. I mean, a 1:57.8. I expect these guys to dip down potentially into the low 57s today, but you know, either way, slapping down a 57.8 for your very first lap is not something to balk at. Some of these drivers out here, of course, Marcus Lawrence being one of the fastest drivers I've seen come around some of these circuits. Of course, his team won the 12-hour Suzuka that George, Nick, and I casted a few months back with another community. Well, no, sorry, didn't win. Took a podium position. I apologize, as I believe the Strelos won that one. But PCDC Motorsports known to be very quick drivers, and of course he is about 4/10 up, flirting with 5/10 at the moment, as he's about halfway done with his lap, and it's looking like he will likely take the pole here, as Muthen is down on his lap, currently 7/10. He'll need to come back around and throw it around the track at least one more time. Lawrence now about flirting with 6/10 up at times. This should put him into that low 57 mark. Very, very quick in this Bentley. He's coming onto the final straight, coming down into the final set of corners. I do not know the corner names as well as George does. I apologize to all you British fans out there who, you know every single thing about Silverstone. I am terrible at this track. I know the terms Maggot and Beckett's, and this corner right here, I know that it's where I go off the track. Marcus Lawrence, however, is not going to. He's going to be coming across the line here shortly, likely about to run a low 57.3 perhaps is what's on the board, and there it is, 57.345 for him, slapping down the gauntlet for the rest of these guys, now a half a tenth up. However, George, Mikael Sundstrom here, coming around the last corner, also a few tenths up.
Yeah, he's 4/10 up, and I just want to also highlight the deck in our GT4 class. He went and slapped down a 2:10.668 coming out, so great lap coming out from him. Sundstrom was potentially up on his lap there, but had invalidated it looked like. But here we ride on board with the deck. Currently our class leader for the GT4 starts. He is a 10th up on his lap time, as well as he sees a GT3 Bentley go round the outside before Vale. And of course, the deck doing the right thing, letting the faster car through, doesn't want to impact his own time, has slightly in lifting, and unfortunately, as he comes down, it is going to look like he's drawn dead even with his previous time, as Macaulay goes a little bit quicker in that Janetta, as it does look like Macaulay going to start first in the GT4s here. The number 20 racing team as we jump towards our 706, who is, of course, up on his lap time as well. This is Reisner. He's almost a second up on his lap, in fact, and that's an absolutely incredible time coming out in this Aston Martin. He's only got a couple of corners to go. I think he might have been up on it because of invalidate. No, he hasn't come to the end of his lap just yet. He's only halfway through. It was the old pit straight that we caught up with him on. So interesting enough to see the Aston Martin really does still have the legs here at Silverstone as well, coming through the loop, as he now has to carry that momentum. Like we said, down onto that Wellington stretch, he really wants to extend that little gap that he has up. He unfortunately has dropped off 5/10, but still holds 4/10 coming down. He is bleeding down the back straight. He really needs to make it count coming into the final couple of corners. The field needs to be clean. Very wide, potentially losing the back end as well. Does catch it. Nice and nice drifty stuff, but that's not what gets you the lap times. And wide again on the exit of the field. And I feel like Reisner has lost that potentially good lap.
Yeah, absolutely. But handled losing the back end with a lot of skill there. I definitely wouldn't have been able to catch that myself. It is awesome to see a Ginetta at the top of the GT4 class at Monza. The Ginetta was struggling just a little bit because the top end just didn't. The Ginetta just does not have the top end to handle those super long straights. But Silverstone seems to be playing right into Ginetta's skill set here. So that's awesome to see at the top of the GT4 class. It's also awesome to see how the times shake up between the two classes. We get to see that side by side in a mixed class race like this to see how those times are stacking up with each other.
And of course, this will be our first venture into this multi-class structure today here at Silverstone. GT3 versus GT4. Of course, GT4 is roughly 10 seconds slower overall across the GT3s on this Silverstone track. Of course, roughly a 2-minute lap time, give or take a few seconds. So 10 seconds being about that difference, and it will be a very interesting thing to watch these guys actually compete in the multi-class event, because we haven't watched one of these yet, and it's a very interesting little dynamic, I guess, overall. As actually, I'm going to pop over to Michael Muthen here. As George, he is currently half-second up on his last time, flirting with that pole position about halfway with his lap here.
I mean, he is only 4/10 off of getting pole from Martin Lawrence in that Bentley. We know how quick the Bentleys can be here. They are absolute monsters here on the British circuit. But Muthen now coming down the Wellington straight. He has definitely found the 5/10 that he would need to take the throne from Lawrence, but can he hold it together? Lawrence is also up on his time. Let's just note that he's 3/10 up. Muthen wrestles with the back of the Porsche, does manage to get it back around, has lost a 10th in doing so. The bull has fought back, so to say, but the number 18 now, the final corner to go through. Let's see what he's done. He comes across the line, and unfortunately, it looks like he's not going to be there. Just 0.03 of a second off of pole. Lawrence, though, he's 2/10 up, and he is not going to let that be the gap that separates him from second place. He wants to come out and show domination. You see some dirt as a Bentley runs off in the background there. Lawrence is not going to let it affect him. He has lost the 10th with trying to just make sure that he wasn't going to be collected in the incident coming down. But with the last couple of corners to go, he does still seem to hold on to that 10. So hopefully he can extend his gap. 3 minutes 42 remain of quali. The last couple of laps for these guys to get round before their 75-minute race that they have to endure. So starting up at the front is what you want to do. That's what Lawrence wants to do, and he is going to improve his time. He's going to put a 10th between himself and the Porsche in second place.
Yeah, the Bentley is just ripping up Silverstone. That's an awesome sight to see. Muthen throwing down excellent times, but still being just a 10th off of Lawrence, just showing some solid dominance in that Bentley. Currently we're on Lempquist, who was up a little bit. Looks like he's going to jump up to third in his Bentley. So it looks like the Bentleys will be competing with possibly the Porsches in this GT3 split.
And interestingly, I've been monitoring a little bit of the GT4 race down here in qualifying, and we just haven't seen a whole lot of guys up on their time in that GT4 split. So that order has more or less stayed the same since McCooley took over that top spot from the deck. And Matthias Kopf here was up on his time quite a bit, except it looks like he got a little bent out of shape. So he was about a half second up, but I'm going to switch over to Mikhail Sundstrom now, who is a few tenths up. He is looking to get that final podium position through qualifying. About halfway done with his lap, 2 tenths up at the moment, which will give him enough, as he is only about 7/100ths of a second behind Stefan Lemke in the 3.79 ahead of him. However, he is losing just a touch of time. Actually, I say that now he's gained a little bit of time coming through the hairpin section here. So we'll see this BMW barrel down this final straight as he comes across, and this might give him the edge he needed to kind of work his way up into third place to start the race.
Yeah, those 2 tenths are definitely going to get him into third place if he just holds on to them. Lemp isn't out on a flyover lap, 1 minute 40 left. So if Lemp is going to fire back, he's going to have to do so really quickly. This number 899 BMW is roaring its way across a little bit wide. You saw him bumping around on the exit on the runoff curve, but he does have those 2 tenths. This potentially is going to bump him back up. And Sundstrom doesn't. He must have run too wide. He did invalidate it. So he is going to have another attempt, though, Mike. That's important. But as will Lemp, who has actually jumped into the pit. So it might just be a final shootout for third as we look down at Harry Conway. And I'll hand over to you, Nick, to talk a little bit about the Ferrari. I don't have too much experience with the car, but I'm told by a little birdie that you are a bit of a fan.
Yeah, definitely. I think the Ferrari is an excellent car in the GT3 class. I seem to set my most consistent laps. Again, I'm about rookie pace, compared to the other drivers that we usually broadcast here at RCI. But yeah, just the Ferrari feels very planted, but you still get that edge of speed. I don't have a preference for the Porsche, even though the Porsche is currently a favorite for the hot lappers on the track, because just the Porsche can just set really excellent times. That is something that cannot be argued. But I do prefer the Ferrari. Also, the livery designs on the Ferrari are just really tough looking, and I just think there's a lot of variety there. So yeah, that's definitely why it is my favorite. I mean, as far as that goes, also the Aston is a excellent car, especially for someone who is at my skill level. It is a forgiving car compared to a few of the others, especially in the GT3 class. So yeah, I mean, it really plays to my personal skill level, and it just looks mean coming down this track.
You know, Nick, I just noticed something. I was looking for an Aston Martin, and I flipped over to one. And however, I just noticed, just to say this real quick, George, if we take a listen to this just for a quick second, that doesn't sound like a V8 Aston. This is a V12 Aston from Martin Lawrence coming out at Silverstone today. That whine coming out as he's slamming down the throttle, coming across the old pit straight, and slams himself down. He is in 9th place so far, George.
Yeah, it is nice to see. I mean, yeah, that was a big moment. Amazing stuff from Lawrence to get his V12 out of the way. Just what I wanted to say. Nice to see a little bit of a mixture of cars. We switch back to the 555. Currently in 8th place, 2 tenths up, so potentially could better his qualifying position here. The GPX flavored racing Porsche, and of course the last bit of the straight to really wind it up, and this is where he needs to make it count. Coming down to things, he is only a 10th up now, so he does seem to have had a bad exit after going through the loop, and quite late on the brakes again. He does seem to have lost another 10th in the final braking zones. There are the cars in front of him potentially getting in his field of view, make him wonder. It is a M4 coming out from the GT4 in front, so he's going to move and make space for Brandl to come through. The 555 is going to cross the line, but I don't think it's going to be enough to improve his position. So unfortunately there for Brandl not managing to do it. I just want to note that Macaulay did manage to improve his lap time. We were seeing these GT4s, our top in class, being about 13 seconds off. Macaulay brought it down to 12.8, so he definitely found a little bit more in the back end of that Ginetta and the final bits of quali.
Yeah, he absolutely did, and it is really good to see, that these GT4s are out here being so consistent. I mean, like they very hardly put any additional lap times down. But I was sitting here watching them; they weren't too far down on their laps either. They were, maybe a tenth or two down overall. So they're being very consistent so far. And I think that, of course, especially across a 75-minute race, that makes a heck of a difference. So it'll be an interesting little dynamic here to find out how these cars work through the next 75 minutes of this race. And we will see how this looks. As George, you want to take us through the grid really quick?
Absolutely. Lawrence and Muthen are going to start on the front row here. A Porsche and Bentley 1-2. Then on the second row, we've got Lemke and Sundstrom in the Bentley and BMW combination. After that, we've got Thissing and Witt starting in 5th and 6th, respectively. Bentley versus Audi. Then we've got Fraschini and Brandl in 7th and 8th position. Martin Lawrence in that V12 Aston and the Porsche of Kopf in 9th and 10th place, which rounds up our top 10. Then we've got Haynes in 11th, Zemanth in 12th, Bourne in 13th, Conway in 14th, Pedrazi in 15th, Reisner in 16th, McCauley in 17th, 18th for Dedek, 19th for Felix, 20th for Kylo Kuja, Wagner in 21st, De Winter in 22nd, and Varga in 23rd on my listing here. Then we've got Billy Octane in 24th, Wanzik in 25th, Wolf Matushka rounding out in 26th place, and that's kind of what I'm shown on my order. If I butchered anybody in that listing, I do apologize.
Yeah, and I have just noticed, actually, before I introduce our new member of the commentary box here, that the server file just seems to didn't want to work, and we do not have a mandatory pit stop as it should be here. So I'm going to take a second and take a look at that as you guys talk for a moment here, and I'll switch over and we'll come back here in just a second.
Yeah, joining us in the box we have our own Josh. How you doing, Josh?
Yeah, I'm doing very well, thanks, Nick. Hello, George. Hello, Mike. Yeah, better late than never. I didn't realize we had a multi-class going on at Silverstone, and being a fellow Brit, I had to get involved in the Silverstone action. So, and yeah, it's going to be great to cast the first multi-class race. Don't really know what to expect at Silverstone. Hopefully the GT3s can get past the GT4s, nice and easily, and hopefully there's no contact between the separate classes or contact in general, really. But yeah, it's great to see, obviously being a member of PCDC Motorsports as well, that Marcus Lawrence has put it on pole position, so you'll be happy with that in the Bentley.
Josh, I'm so glad that you joined up here. It sounds like your enthusiasm for Silverstone will add a hint of class to what we bring here tonight. And of course, I'm excited too, not sure what to expect. Touching on the mixed classes, I could have only wished for a couple more GT4s. It sort of saddens me a little bit that we don't have as full of a grid of GT4s or a balance between the GT3s and GT4s. But I think that it will make it a little bit easier for the guys in the GT3s to navigate through the traffic. And I think the GT4 guys will, knowing they're 12 seconds off the pace, give the respect where it's needed. This is our pro tier. I think we're ready for an action-packed evening, Josh.
Yeah, I think so as well. It's going to be interesting to see how the difference in pace with each of the drivers. But as you've already touched on, they are pro. These are the pro drivers at RCI, so everyone's respectful. Everybody knows what they're doing. So yeah, I don't think it'll be a problem. But it's going to be great to see. We're going to be effectively casting two races at the same time. Trying to keep an eye on all the battles in each of the classes is it's going to be the hard part for Mike to keep up with on the cameras tonight. But we'll wait and see. Silverstone is always full of drama, regardless of what cars you're racing in. You could be in lawnmowers and I'd still be interested. So let's wait and see.
It's going to be exciting. Nick, on your end, I'm not quite sure if you've decided on who we're going to pick as a winner. Maybe we could do something a little bit different since it's Sunday and it's our first multi-class stream on a Sunday for a bit of a once-off series. Maybe we won't pick a winner. Maybe we won't put a curse out there. I know it's proverbially a little bit different. But let's just see what happens if we don't curse someone. Can we try that? So we're all in agreement?
Yeah, I think that should just be good for us. I mean, we have a 75 minutes of Silverstone racing for us. This is a new format that we're testing at RCI here. So I think we can just let it be and just kind of let it shake out on its own. As we were alluding to with the mixture of the two classes, and the GT4 class, even at the pro level, is averaging about 12 to 13 seconds slower than the GT3 cars. That does add a lot of strategy for the GT3 cars, that they have to see all of the GT4 class about every several laps or so, and that'll happen a few times during this race for a 75-minute race. So it's going to be interesting to see how they shake that out and add that to their strategy. They're going to be seeing back markers way more often than they would be used to in a single class event. So that's just something that they have to add into their strategy, along with the pit stop strategy, which is something that we are currently looking into. I'm not sure what can be done at that point. Yeah, so the pit stop is not going to be mandatory from this point. But I mean, I think the drivers have plenty to think about, when, especially if you're in the GT3 class, managing the back markers in the GT4 class, and they'll be seeing them quite a bit more often. So there'll be still plenty of strategy on the track.
Yeah, guys. Sorry about that. I was looking into the pit stop thing. I was checking the server files. The server files seem to be set correctly. Unfortunately, the game decided it did not want to accept the pit stop thing. So I think at this point, rather than resetting the server and having to rerun qualifying and everything, because it would take longer to go set the qualifying order, that we will go ahead and run without that pit stop. So 75 minutes, plenty of time for all of these cars to come out and run 75 minutes worth of laps with plenty of fuel. Hopefully they have all set their fuel all the way up, as they should have noticed, and with a message from race control as well, not have done that. But that said, we will get started here shortly as Marcus Lawrence is bringing the grid down, and I will turn it over to these three gentlemen to cast the race, and I will more or less keep myself muted. Hope you guys have a good race.
Thanks so much, Mike. Mike, full disclosure there, I may have confused a couple of drivers with our race control communications. So I just want to fully put it out there that at the start of the race, I'd kind of indicated what our original strategies were, and then I'd put out after that, of course, race control was canceling that pit stop anyway. So hopefully it's not going to affect anybody's race too much. If it does, then that's on me. That's an apology from my side, but Marcus Lawrence is going to be starting us away, obviously, against Muthen in that Porsche. Side by side, they start to line up. They are done with their single file warm-up laps, and this is about to kick off. An hour and 15 minutes here at Silverstone. A mixture of classes, GT3s and GT4s in the midst, the majority being GT3s. So for now, it's going to be an interesting start. Of course, we're going to have Lawrence having the inside line to T1. And of course, for Cops, that's going to mean that Muthen is either going to be forced out wide or having to defend on the inside to the likes of Lemp and Sundstrom. Rolling down the start line now, we see a little bit of weaving going down to try and preserve a little bit of that tire warmth. And of course, Macaulay starting us away in the GT4s. It will be a Ginetta versus BMW down the back of the order, starting in 17th and 18th are GT4s. It really is a sea of GT3s. As the flag goes green, racing has started, and a good start from Muthen. He goes very wide on the outside. Lawrence with the apex. They squeeze together, making their way down towards Maggots now. It's still side by side. No one wants to yield. It will be Muthen who has to give some room to Lawrence, and down in our GT4 class, it is Macaulay still holding off. It looks like a couple of running wides going out as well, as unfortunately not everybody up to temperature. The GT4s aren't going to start with the warmer tires. They're going to struggle to get the temperature up.
Yeah, it looks like a great start from the GT3 guys there. The top two of Marcus Lawrence and Muthen there were so close at the start, but looks like Marcus Lawrence has got that place back. But I'm sure Muthen in that Porsche now. I believe the Porsche is quite strong in these sort of slower sectors. I know the Bentley can sort of swallow up the curbs there at Maggots and Beckett. So I think that's probably where the Porsche sort of, let's back out of this now. It's a fight I'm not going to win now, as we see some of the GT4 guys now actually on the back there. Oh no, that's the Audi of Pedrosini. They're going to go look up the inside there of Reisner in the Aston Martin GT3. Sorry, for a second I thought it was a GT4. So, but no, we've got is it Dedicek there in the BMW that's leading that class? We've got a McLaren there doing the lawn mowing that I mentioned earlier on. Is that Wolf Machuska? I think didn't he start at the back of our pack of GT4s?
Yeah, Matushka is definitely making his way back through. I'm not quite sure where he started up. I'm not sure it was quite at the back, but he's most certainly giving the beans here to Joseph Varga. Side by side, they go down onto the back of the Wellington Straight. And of course, the inside line here going to be awarded to Varga. Matushka will be on the outside. Will the little undercut come back in from Matushka onto the brakes? They go through, but Matushka now will be on the inside for the hairpin, and that's what he needs in the Camaro. Cheeky little Wagner coming to have a look-see as well. So it looks like the Camaro brutes his way through as well. Varga goes quite wide, but Wagner really squeezing. They go side by side down the start-finish straight. No room to go. Wagner's going to have to pull back to the left side of the track to go through the apex on the right-hander, and he is going to tuck back, and it will be Felix in that AMG just wrecking on the back end of that Camaro. So literally the GT4s can follow so much closer. The aero effect is not there, and they can really get themselves into the order. As we look at Martin Lawrence in his V12 Aston, he's currently got the Bentley of Hines rearing up the back end as they make their way to Vale.
Yeah, absolutely. And just the two strategies of the two classes really shaking out. The GT4 cars can really get in there and scrap with each other a little more than the GT3 cars. So that is just making for exciting racing to watch. As I'm actually still watching the back of Wagner, still battling the back of Varga, it looks like. Oh, sorry. Of Felix ahead of him, was getting a little bit of a bump and scrape there, but shook it out as he's going to go wide around that corner. The GT4 cars it's still in a tight pack. It looks like we lost a few of the GT3 cars back from the main pack as we're shaking back after that. But yeah, Wagner leading that current train. But yeah, this is shaking out to be very exciting racing, as we're actually saw a little bit of a caution flag up on car number 7 up in the GT3 class. I just saw that pop up on my screen. Lost a little bit of the track, and looks like he's lost a few positions. That is Mattis Kopf in the number 7 Porsche. Jumping back over to Froschel in the lone Honda in the GT3 class, if I'm not mistaken. Looks like he is trying to grab a little bit of distance from Vit behind him, but that Audi is screaming up that back straight and is looking for to grab a little bit of ground off of Herbert there.
Not a place that you would normally find a Honda NSX up in position 5 here. Herbert Froschel doing a great job in the number 86 to just hold back Paul Phil Vitt there. We're going to switch back to Billy Octane. Billy Octane, earlier on, I wanted to just mention, he seemed to be having some pace. He seems to have got himself away from the action that was happening up in front. He was on the back end of this pack that we're looking at the moment, which is, of course, Wagner. And they have caught all the way up to a GT3 Porsche there as well. So it looks like Michael Wagner leading things away for a little train behind him. Macaulay and Brandl are trying to hold on. Billy Octane is going to get into the mix as well. Sorry, Brandl is the GT3 Porsche that they were catching up to there. I believe Billy Octane is trying to catch back up to them.
Yeah, so something obviously must have happened to Brandl there at the start, as we see Joe Macaulay in the Ginetta. So the Ginetta's got such good cornering speed as well, so we're going to see them sort of go down side by side now into Vale, I believe this is. And he should have the handling on the Camaro, but the Camaro is just a big brute. And I'll be honest, if I was going to have to go side by side with that thing, I'd probably stay away as well. And now Billy Octane's on the rear of the Ginetta now. And we all know that Jeanette does struggle in the straights. It seems to top out very, very quickly as we now go into the rear wing. As some good cam work now as Billy Octane in the bright blue and pink livery there. It's all over the back of the Ginetta. And it's also interesting to see how much more curb the GT4s can take without it unsettling the car too much. And I believe that's down to the actual ride height on that. Maybe Georgie might know a little bit more about that, but it's just nice. You can probably be aggressive with the car and just hit the curbs, which you would probably avoid for your life in the GT3s. And I've got to say, it's good to see a Ginetta in a scrap at Silverstone. I thought it would be kind of a sitting duck here at on all the different straights as we come down the Wellington straight now. As you can see, the Audi does gain, but it's not quite enough. And then this is where the Ginetta comes into its own. It's got such a good apex speed, but you just can't get past the big brute of the Camaro there. So we switch back to some GT3 action now. And yeah, like you say, you don't really see a Honda NSX this high up and up the grid. And the top four is currently Bentley, Porsche. So and I know secretly, George, you'll be rooting for the Porsche guys there.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. I liked your notes. I liked your notes on the GT4s, just how much curb they can take. And you're right, the sort of gap underneath the car that you can visibly see, they do run a little bit higher. They don't have as much aero that can be affected either. You do have to worry about bottoming out on your splitters as well. Same sort of thing that you do get on the GT3s, but it most certainly isn't as fragile and most certainly alludes to allowing you to push the limits. As we look at yet another Bentley driving around here in 8th place, currently chasing down that V12 as they make their way through the loop. And of course, it's all down to braking. We see the NSX making the mistake that he needed to make for Phil Witt to benefit, but it's going to be 3 wide coming down as Sundstrom in the M6 starts the drag race down Wellington. It will be a late exit, and it looks like Sundstrom on the inside here of Froschel in that NSX. So if the M6 gets good on the brakes here, it should be up to him. He is going to go and do exactly what he needs to do, but that NSX is dialed in to fight back as they go back through the hairpin side, going into the last corner. Now it does look like Sundstrom has done all the work that he needs to do to hold off the back attack of the NSX, and of course it was all down to braking through the loop that big mistake was made. So Sundstrom done a good job to get past and put a couple of car lengths between as Varga, he's going to dance with Felix. It will be McLaren versus AMG here, and the McLaren with a car length gap here. Varga, the 221 McLaren, is just sort of leading on that British Racing Green AMG, the number 88, as they make their way down to Brooklands. Again, this will be their 4th lap out. An hour and 6 minutes of racing still to go. I'm a little bit sad I can't talk about more Porsches and punt those for more, because it's not such a secret. But, Josh, good racing in any kind of car class. I'm excited. Nick, I haven't seen too much feature of your Ferraris, mate.
Well, there's not a lot on the track. So the in the GT4 class, I think there's been a lot of excitement about the Chevy and the Ginetta. The Ginetta can just get in there and really scrap in the corners, and that's where it's going to count. As we're actually jumping back to the battle between Russell and Witt, we saw Sundstrom really capitalize on that little mistake that they were making as they were battling and just snuck right past them, and is currently up in 7th place ahead of them. So as we saw that on the stream, but yeah, I mean, trying to fight off the pace, I feel like Witt has the pace on the 86 NSX, but just he's playing very defensively and is succeeding to obviously some degree here. But I mean, that Audi is just really showing the pace, and the NSX is trying to just fight him off in the corners, and we'll see how long that he can last on the defensive there.
Yeah, it's been a great race so far as we switch to our leader now, who currently has a 2.3 second lead out front. Which isn't a comfortable lead, but it's enough you haven't got to be worrying about looking in the mirrors or the massive screen that the Bentley has. So he'll just be keeping his head down now, just trying to get into a nice little rhythm and just checking the laps there. There was only a 10th between first and second place, as Froschel now is having to go side by side into Maggots, and now Beckett's with Witt again. He is so keen to get past this Honda. He's had enough now. As you can see, he gets so close, but can he get the run now down the Hanger straight? and into Stowe Corner. This is probably one of the more popular overtaking spots here at Silverstone, but the straight line speed of the NSX is just, as we see Vit flashing the lights saying, come on mate, let me go past, but the NSX isn't having any of it as Vit goes real close down the inside at Stowe. That was quite the dive on the late on the brakes, but you know, all within the rules. But Froschel, I think, just thought, I'm just going to get out of the way. I'd just be grateful it's bright pink and you've seen it coming from a mile away. So yeah, he's got the move done, and now let's see if Phil Vitt can actually use that pace to get onto the back of the other guys there. So we still see Varga in the McLaren. I think Felix has actually got past him now, so the McLaren has fallen back ever so slightly. And we've got the Ginetta of Macaulay still running quite well. Like I said, I'm surprised the Ginetta. Look how close he gets to him out of cops there. But has he got the straight line speed to get alongside? And if anything, he needs to get alongside here, but it is kind of risky. So be interested to see how the gap separates now as they come down Hanger Straight. If we can just keep on this one for a moment, because from what I've been reading around, around the community, that the Ginetta really struggles down the straight. So let's see if the McLaren does pull away, even with that little bit of slipstream. I'm expecting the McLaren to have enough gap to not worry about having to defend. As you can see, the gap has already increased between the two, so it's a great shame really, because the Ginetta is a great car, but maybe for tracks like Laguna Seca, that would be a popular car of choice, I'd say.
The British side of Josh feeling a little bit of the disappointments of the top end of the Ginetta coming out. But I mean, I do think that the balance of Silverstone does still keep the car kind of in it. It does have a fair amount of top end, but it does have some agility needing moments where the Ginetta can kind of look out and say, let me handle the monkey bars section. You guys can do the sprints down the straight. But, talking about fast cars, we know that the power of the M4 that we're currently looking at, the deck, the number 48, the BMW sort of argued to have one of the better top end sides. So most definitely going to love the straight sections here as he gets down onto Wellington. And of course, the deck is leading over Wolf Matuszka by just a second. So early on, it was almost a 2-second gap. So either the deck made a slight error, or Wolf Matuszka did Wolf Matuszka things and found more dial-in into the Audi. And the great pink beast, the number 25, now hunts down the M4. It's always cool to see the balance of cars here and to see where they stack up. I think the GT4s have a little bit of work still from our developers. It's a reasonably new car pack, and I think the community understands that they're going to be making tweaks to certain things. And sometimes it's not about those kind of cars though, Nick. Sometimes it's about the screamers, sometimes it's about the V12s, and sometimes it's about Martin Lawrence. He's currently running 5th in the V12 Aston Martin, the number 171.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always awesome to see the V12 hit the track. It's a bit of a rarity out here to actually see it, but Martin Lawrence really showing that pace. We were watching Wolf Matuszka a bit there in the GT4 class. He started in the back of the pack, and I'm starting to wonder if he did that on purpose just to fight his way to the front of the GT4 pack. Because I mean, within 2 laps, he was already fighting for GT4 podium. So like it just like they weren't even moving. So I'm just wondering if that was on purpose or not. As we're jumping to Harry Conway in the 28 Ferrari. Trying to fight for a little bit of pace, but that Audi is just all the way up on him, getting a huge amount of speed on that straight. Took the outside, took a little bit of a defensive wiggle. Is going to go really wide here off the track, and just trying to fight for that position. But he currently has the inside even after coming back onto the track, holding that inside line. But he's going to go sideways and spin it. Harry Conway has completely lost control and is currently trekking through the sand trap. That is a tough blow. Was trying to stay defensive and has retired to the pits. That is a tough blow to Harry Conway.
I will give him 10 points for the actual maneuver itself, but I'll take away some points for the exit splash. A little bit too big going onto the gravel trap, and our lone Ferrari of Conway sadly departs to the pit box.
It's a 7 out of 10 for me, George.
A 7 from Josh.
Yeah, I think
Josh.
7's good.
Okay, so we're going with 7. Unfortunately, Conway not going to be happy with his 7 rating or his returning to the pits. But Anatoly Bure in the number 89 Bentley is definitely on the hunt here. And I think it's Aston Martin for dinner in a couple of seconds as we see the front end getting right up to the back of the V12. They get onto the Wellington straight. The V12 can roar. I sometimes, when we go to those spectator cams, forget if we are watching an F1 2020 game, or sorry, an earlier version, possibly that's not the sound of a hybrid Formula One car, onto the anchors before the hairpin, and I don't think it's going to be enough for Beret here to get too much done. Lawrence really does have this thing dialed in, and I want to tip my hat to him for picking a car that's arguably not the strongest in class, but most certainly gives a couple of talking points.
Yeah, and exactly that. I think we got a similar kind of thing with the Maserati and the GT4. It sounds fantastic. The downshifts are probably the best sounding in the game, but it doesn't have ABS or traction control. So obviously, you're at a disadvantage from the start. But it takes some brave drivers to pull it off. And when you see things like this, like Martin Lawrence here is having, you appreciate what he's doing there. He's using what you class as an old GT3 car now. Up into P5, and he's holding his own at the moment. He has got the Cavalry are arriving in the Bentley, and Sundstrom in the BMW, and also Witt, who was stuck behind the McLaren for quite a while. No, it wasn't a McLaren, was it?
Honda.
It was the Honda. I don't know where the Honda's gone. He's actually dropped the 15th now. Okay, fair enough. Obviously, he's using his pace to catch up onto the back of this, and he'll be grateful for Lawrence to hold these guys up for as long as possible, because we're going to have a four-way fight for P5 soon, and I know the Bentley can be strong here. It's one of probably only two cars I've actually used at this track. I used it here for 12 hours, and it's very, very stable. It's quite nice to sort of float around. I know it sounds quite stupid, but
the Boatley does float. I think it's
there you go. It's a meme in itself.
Yeah, no, it definitely handles itself quite nicely. And of course, right up the front for PCDC Motorsport, Marcus Lawrence, the number 29 Bentley, doing his thing. He's got himself a 1.8 second gap to Muthen in the number 18 Porsche behind him as he goes side by side with Billy Octane. The GT4 lets him go by without any sort of fuss. As you would expect to see here, Marcus Lawrence doing the greatest of drives for himself. 56 minutes still remain here for the guys to go on out. Andrzej Dedek, the number 48 M4, trying to continue to do what he can do, but he's not being given the same sort of steeds as we see in our GT3 battle, as Matuszka, of course, giving all the pressure in that Audi as the German manufacturers battle it out here at Silverstone.
Yeah, absolutely. The GT4 class staying competitive. The M4, as was mentioned, really strong car in the GT4 class. Just has the top end in all of these straights, and Matuszka showing just raw skill in that Audi. Fought his way up through the pack and is now fighting for first position in the GT4 class, and this I'm going to assume this is a battle that we're going to see rage on for quite a while, as the deck actually went just a little bit wide there, looks like, but I mean, holding a lot of defensive ground there. The BMW able to hold a lot of the top speed down to the straights, and as you can see, pulls out onto the straight and is able to just get that distance, but Matuszka seems to have a little bit in the curves.
Yeah, I wanted to say the M4 has been noted to not have the same sort of braking ability really as the other cars. So it's a bit of a pocket rocket with sort of drum brakes coming out. So really where Wolf Matuszka can dial things in his Audi is through any of the braking zones. So of course that thing can fly towards the end, but I think the deck is having to brake a little bit earlier, and that's really allowing Matuszka to hold on to him. So because the track doesn't have entirely straight dependent points, it means that the Audi remains competitive and can really just keep the deck honest, doesn't let him get away. And having a car planted in your rearview mirror just stops you having the comfort of being able to do what you do. You know that with that sort of gap, one tire onto the dirt through a complex of corners like this can be everything wrong. You mess up Chapel and you run down can be, horrendous using that bit of straight. So it is all to play for. We switch back to another battle on track. Of course, this is Phil Witt and Mikael Sandstrom. It will be Audi versus BMW again, as Phil Witt, Wolf Matuszka's teammate, rides around in the GT3 operation, as we see a GT4 Porsche, the number 13, going across track. Obviously messed up Maggotts Beckett's and had to bail out, went across circuit, did a little bit of a lawn mowing service, and he will potentially lose out to a Camaro behind him. But Phil Witt still trying to get onto the back of Sundstrom here, and this is potentially where he can really dial in. There's a lot of cars on track, a lot of people having to sort of focus on other things, and if you can just dial in at that racing line, not look away and focus on what you need to do, the 303 can really benefit.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing here is a whole new skill set that these drivers have to have in these multi-class races. The GT4 cars, we've seen them kind of just grabbing grass or dirt to avoid these huge trains of GT3 cars just plowing right through them. So like that's a whole new thing that they have to think about and worry about. Is they have cars that can just go blazing past them, and they have to find a angle that is off the racing line a lot quicker than they're probably used to as a back marker in the same class. So that is a whole new skill set that they need to dial down, so that they're not just throwing themselves off track just to avoid the bullet train coming up from behind them.
Yeah, exactly that. And I'm interested to see, obviously that was our first little bit of GT3 overtaking GT4 action, sort of, not getting in the way, but obviously, closing gaps, opening gaps. These three, or four, should I say, have been pretty close together now for quite a while. The V12 Aston is the guy in front of this train, but yeah, Phil Witt, he's looking pretty good. He's at the close in on these guys, and another one, Sundstrom, in the BMW. You don't see those, they're not very popular. They're not very a popular pick anymore. I know when the game first came out, they had like an acceleration glitch or something, so they were pretty fast. But as you can see, there's a Ginetta there pulling over to the left-hand side. So this is perfect for the GT3s and the GT4. No one's going to lose any time, because we know down the straight they're a lot slower. Sundstrom now is getting rather racy with the Bentley, and the Bentley's also getting racy with the V12 Aston. Can he hold it in? The guy in the heli is having a bit of a fit, but we're back onto the action now, and the Bentley didn't quite get the move done, and neither did the BMW, but Phil Witt is just sitting in wake there, waiting for something to happen, I think. As the Bentley catches a little bit of sausage curb there, and that's what I was alluding to earlier on. You do that in a GT4, you'd probably be fine, you wouldn't lose too much time, but as you can see, the gap between the Bentley and the V12 Aston now has grown a lot, and Witt is right on the back of this pack now.
Absolutely incredible driving coming out. I love the way that you had to see Lawrence going hard on the defensive to try and stop anything go. They're going to go side by side with some more GT4s down onto the braking zone. Absolutely tight racing coming out. Good room being made from our GT4 class to let all three GT3s through without giving or losing the time. Absolutely incredible stuff, in fact, as we follow along here. It's so difficult to really just highlight how good these guys are driving. Born in that Bentley does he run all the way to the end? I think a little tap perhaps, but it looks like it's not going to unsettle the V12 just yet. Lawrence still doing what he needs to do, holding those inside apexes. Sundstrom is reeling them in every single apex he wants to try and get through. You saw him do it almost when the gap opened itself towards the end of the hangar straight. But boy, here is definitely finding the beans. He's giving all the hard work to Martin Lawrence to do. And down into Maggotts Beckett's, they're going to go side by side. It's where he needs to be. He needs to get some room, but he has to back off. And Sundstrom in that M6, he's going to run wide. He's going to have to try and get onto the black stuff to get the brakes to work. He's going to lose out to Phil Witt on the outside of Beckett's. Chappell might be the determiner. It will be. Sundstrom loses out to the Audi. And in between all that, the Bentley has not made up the position onto Lawrence. The 171 V12 Aston holds off the Bentley GT3 car. Years of a difference in technology between these two cars, and it's a great bit of driving for the 171 to be in 5th place, holding up this pack of cars. You can see it is like a little bit of a bottle-up effect, but absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's what you want to see. If you can't get by safely, you don't deserve the position. And if it's a car with older technology doing it, it will be sitting in your mind. You want to get past, you don't want to be here. And the bright purple and blue accented Bentley once again tries to carry the momentum through and begin at the loop for another attack.
That was unbelievable, and yeah, so it looks like I believe that was our class leader, and also Wolf Machushka as well has dropped down into 4th in the GT4 class, and Dedek or Dedecek, I don't know how you say that name, I'll go with Dedek, yeah, so he's now 2nd, and we've got the Camaro now in the lead. And I did see that Camaro involved with all the GT3s at Luffield as it was like rush hour, 8 a.m. in the morning at some point down there. There was like 3 GT4 cars and the battle we've been following with the V12 Aston there. So yeah, so it's all seemed to have swapped around in the GT4 class. I'm not sure what happened to our 2 front runners, because I believe they had quite a gap to this Camaro that I believe was running in P3. So, but he's got the lead now, so he needs to put his he needs to get his head down and pull away, because he's actually got a 2-second lead over Dedek at the moment, and there isn't any. There's 2 GT3s behind this little GT4 pack to get past. So it should be interesting to see how much time they lose. And as I was saying, it's all about where you catch. The other class. If you've got to get out of the way, you've got to watch out for an angry GT3 car. You need to try and keep your nose clean as well. So as with this battle now, all of a sudden Phil Vitt is in to 6th place, so into 2nd in this little battle of cars we've had for quite a while now. I believe probably for the last 25 minutes or so, as Sundstrom is going to go down the inside of the Bentley there at Stowe as well. So he's going to go. He's just going to slot in behind us. Phil Vitt now is on the charge. This guy, he's had some great pace. He's been rear-ended. He's been hit off, and he's been hit again just to rub some salt into the wounds there. But so we're going to catch the replay now. He literally just hadn't, got the wrong braking zone there. But it did look like the Bentley was going to allow the Audi to go back out in front.
Yeah, the Bentley there, unfortunately, I mean, you could just see the pressure coming up from Sundstrom. He had lost out heavily, the Bentley driver coming down towards the end of Hangar 3 Stowe. He had sort of gone into that defensive position against Sundstrom, who had accepted it, but he then missed that braking zone and just had nowhere to go coming down into Vale. Like you said, did give the position back, but it doesn't repair the car. There's no friendly repair pixies that are going to come out and, dab the back end of this Audi of Phil Vitt. Yeah, if only. But they're not going to be out, and the back end of the Audi is going to be a little bit of a handful, I'm sure. The ACC damage model doesn't allow too much rubbing his racing in the GT3s like it does our GT4s, as we have a little look-see at our number 25, Wolf Matushka, who unfortunately has dropped down to 3rd place in class. He, of course, is trying to get back to the back end of the deck, the number 48 BMW, as Kallio Kujala runs away in that Camaro. But of course, we have to look at lap times, and if we look at Kujala's lap times, it doesn't look like he can hold the same pace that the 2 drivers behind him can. So if the deck and Matushka just sort of work cleanly to make their way back up, they'll catch up to their class leader within the next 46 minutes of racing. So Wolf Matushka gonna just sort of keep his head down, try and do just that. They catch back up to the back end of some of the GT3 cars, who are lapping around slowly and dangerously side by side. Matushka going to get past the deck there, as I believe the deck just sort of eased off and let him through. So maybe the deck wanting to follow Matushka around a little bit. He's had enough of playing the leader role, and Matushka now going to lead the charge as they try to catch this man, our leader in GT4's Tommy Kallio Kujala. Say that 6 times fast and something magical will happen, and I only say that because you probably couldn't say it 6 times fast, Josh.
I wonder if you say that 6 times, that's where the repair pixies come from. Who knows?
The repair pixie, you're right. The summoning curse is there. You figured it out.
But yeah, so it's blatantly obvious that Machushka and Dedek have the pace on this. But like we've seen with the V12 Aston, you've got to go past. It doesn't matter if if you are slower, you've just got to be fast in the right places. And I'd imagine the Camaro is pretty fast down the straights. As we switch back to our leader in the GT3, Marcus Lawrence for PCDC Motorsports, and that gap is now 4.2. I believe last time we checked in with him, it was around 2.3, 2.4. So, like I said earlier on, he's just plodding on. He's got he's got his job to do. So is that I believe that was Reisner probably facing the wrong way. It looks like he's got a little bit of damage there. It's an unusual place to make contact with anything other than a car, so I can only imagine him and Brandl have maybe come together at some point on that lap. And now all of a sudden, Dedek is under pressure from Andre Felix, who's been on our screens quite a lot, caught up in a bit of GT3 traffic earlier on. But yeah, Dedek seems to be falling into the clutches of Felix in the AMG at the moment. As you alluded to earlier, I think it was you, George, the British Racing Green. So maybe that's a nod to Silverstone circuit.
Yeah, and just to confirm with the chat and everybody out there, Josh, you were right in how to say Dedek's name. It is Dedek. So, of course, in RCI style, we brutalize someone's name and then we get corrected. And
it wouldn't be an RCI broadcast otherwise.
It wouldn't. And then what happens is in 2 weeks' time, when the same driver comes, we try and remember it. We get it wrong for the first couple of times, and then we remember that we've got it, you know. We are natively just all English-speaking people, and sometimes the mixture of different surnames enter into the broadcast. But it's great because it means that we have a mixture of drivers from all over the world competing in these events, and it really gets to highlight just how good the sim racing community is in terms of pace. Everybody has been putting in the time and effort to drive these cars around, and here we follow Sandstrom, who is now entering into that Gladiator arena to have his duel up against Martin Lawrence in that 171 V12 Aston and down at the back of the Wellington Straight. It will be interesting to see how the BMW does. Josh, I liked how you pointed out, it's not a loved car, this M6. It sort of got picked up and discarded like an unwanted Pokemon card from back in the day.
Yeah. But maybe it'll be worth, you know, a lot of money in the future, like some Pokemon cards, like you said. But just one quick thing I want to touch on just before, when you were talking about all the different nationalities and stuff. But obviously that's where the I in RCI comes from, Racing Club International. And I just had to point out, you know, we've got 3 commentators and a broadcaster from 3 different continents as well in the box tonight. So it just shows that, you know, the sim racing community, you know, it's all over the world. And yeah, it's such a pleasure to be a part of.
Yeah, absolutely, and it is awesome to be in the box and broadcasting with all of you. As we're still following Michael Sundstrom, who is fighting for that position. I think just the back of Lawrence's car there, the V12, has just been an intimidating battleground that he's been dragging around with him around the track. We've seen some drama unfold back there as people have been trying to fight to get past him, but he just has been holding on so desperately onto position 5. And is not letting anybody past, even if it leads them to an incident. I'm not going to say that he's causing it, but it does seem to be happening in his rearview mirror. So we'll continue to follow that as we're actually going to jump back to Felix, who's still fighting on the back of Wolf Matushka, who is getting pretty close, hoping for a bit of a speed run down this run, a little bit falling back in side by side. Jump into the helicam. This is actually excellent for this battle. A Janetta from Maguli in the back is going to get mixed up in this as well. So we will see how this shakes out. Yeah, the GT3 car up ahead. Obviously, is going to pull ahead of them a little bit there, but we'll see how this battle shakes out.
Felix is definitely trying to do everything possible to hold back that Janetta and, of course, try and find a way by on the Audi of Matushka. But I mean, a 4-way battle up for 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and now 5th. At the inside, Felix defends out, and Cooley trying to do everything around the outside, try and change up his line, but it will only make him the loser in the situation. Felix drives on relatively unscathed, and McCooley drops off a couple of car lengths, and those tents will haunt him through. Won't be doing the same mistake. A nice onboard view as we see the ability for the GT4s to really eat into the curbs as they make their way down through into Village to then begin the loop. And of course, it's just a little train of GT4s ahead of Joe McCready here. He's got Felix, Matushka, and Dedek all within sight. Any mistakes made will play into his hands, and it's all about keeping the car on track. If you want to finish first, you first have to finish.
Yeah, exactly that. And doesn't the Janetta sound great? I've got to say, it does sound pretty epic from that onboard.
Mike Jones, our cameraman and sort of broadcast lead here, he was talking to me about it and gave me a little bit of an onboard view, which made me have to change into a new outfit afterwards. A little peek-a-pews and twos, you know, really threw back to the car enthusiast in me. I always wanted a car that made fluttery sounds when I shifted gears.
Well, it's like the V12 Aston, George. You know, that thing makes such an awesome sound when it shifts. That's my whole thing about the Ginetta. I'm not like massive on the engine itself, but man, when you shift that thing, it's just that solid chunk that happens, and I really like that. I will say though, of all cars across the GT4s, this one right here on the onboard cam is the one that will excite me the most. This is the
How
car.
did I
Of
know?
course
The
you'd say that.
American- Of course the American will go to the American side. Of course our Brett will go to the Ginetta. You guys are lucky there's no South African cars for me to use my bias on.
Alright,
but
I'll
did
just go ahead and
enough- I
mute
did
you
enough
guys and
supporting.
turn up the game audio, and we'll just let that run, okay? Like, I have that discretion.
We are not letting you control the Camaro view forever. It is a nice, I mean, kudos to Kunos. Kudos to Kunos. They did a great job on mastering the sounds. They did so in the GT3s. The GT4s are an absolute treat. And to now have multi-class racing, I mean, this is something different. We only have 38 minutes remaining here. We had an hour and 15 minutes out on track at the start. And with only just under 40 minutes to go, time has flown by. Wolf Matuszka continues. So 38 minutes is going to feel like an absolute lifetime for these guys fighting it out in second, third, and fourth. But of course, that's only going to benefit that number 78 because he wants to try and get as far away of this or away from the train as possible. So if Dedicek gets into the battle with Matuszka, then we can see Kujala. Again, that surname's going to throw me. 78, Camaro just drive on by. But yeah, it's just a great battle. Sundstrom still, he just cannot get past the V12. He just cannot find the way through. And Mikhail Sundstrom just doing everything right, you know, making sure that he stays safe, not trying anything too silly. He hasn't really been in a position that needs to do so. So really some great racing on track here today, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. And as was alluded to, the 78 Chevy Calio just doesn't quite have the pace. Was able to sneak into first position in the GT4 class, but has quickly lost that gap over the last few laps and is actually now at the front end of that current train. So I would imagine that that is going to be a pass of the train waiting to happen pretty quickly here. It's still holding on about like half a second or even more slower than Dedicek and Wolf are averaging behind him. So it's pretty much only a matter of time before this train shakes out.
Yeah, as we've got the Bentley there that had a bit of bit of damage earlier on with I believe it was Vit in the Audi. So he's making his way past the GT4s now, which he knows these guys are battling for the lead in class, but he's like, I need to get through. So yeah, like I said, it's like a traffic jam on track. It's quite funny trying to watch a GT3 navigate through a 5-car battle for the lead. But he's done really, really well. Oh no, he hasn't done well at all actually. Well, he's got out of the way of the battle at least, but he didn't really do well for himself. But maybe realize who he was racing there, and he doesn't want to be the one to ruin it all. So as we go back to Joe McCauley there in the Ginetta, I got to say some of the liveries are pretty cool on the GT4s. As Felix again, we've seen some lawn mowing today. I've got to say, the guys at Silverstone are saving an absolute fortune on paying somebody to do that. So that's good. But I believe Kylio Kujala is still leading our class at the moment, but Dedicek in the BMW is still, one mistake, as as we've said before, and this scrap is just right back up again. But it's good to see, and I'm not saying it doesn't happen in GT3s as well, but how close the GT4s are, this far into the race. We're just over the halfway mark, and we've got we did have a 5-car battle for the lead. Obviously, they've kind of spread out a bit now, but I think that's the effect of a GT3 cutting its way through. But they'll all, concertina back in, as we've actually got Dedicek in the pits now, I believe. So maybe he didn't fuel up enough, as Marcus Lawrence, our leader, now has to cut through. So he will be. There you go. He's on the flashes there. But it'll be in his mind. He's leading this race. He does not want to have contact with the GT4 if he can avoid it. But Marcus Lawrence, incredibly experienced, as Mike said earlier. He's done quite a lot of races in other communities. He's also, he normally ends up on the podium in many races. It's a shame he's not more of a regular here at RCI, but hopefully this might motivate him. So, and we're back now to Wolf Matuszka. who is now in second in class as Dedicek has come into the pits. So I hope these GT4 guys have put enough fuel in and they can run to the end, but I'm not really sure.
Yeah, there was a little bit of a confusion coming through on our race control side of things. Our server side, which obviously controls the mandatory stop that was meant to sort of happen, didn't really display coming through. So potentially some of the drivers getting a bit of a mixed message. Obviously, the drivers were all told to continue without a mandatory stop here. So if some of the drivers had, prepared a full strategy that involved them going in for some fuel, then and they had that loaded up, then that will be the way that they're going. So they're going to handle that differently. So if anything was conveyed a little bit late minutes and confusing, of course, big apologies there to drivers who have been let back by that. Wolf Matuszka here is going to still hold on. He really is cutting back into catching up to Kujala here. So he really is benefiting off of Dedicek having to go into the pits, because now the battle for the class lead in the GT4s really heats up. Audi versus Camaro down the Wellington straight. Matuszka trying to use as much slipstream as available, as well as squeeze himself to the inside. He is going to force the Camaro out wide, but Matuszka now needs to get onto the anchors. He is late on the anchors indeed, and it will be Kujala to come out on top coming into Laffield. He's got the car back around. Matuszka too late on the brakes to really bring the speed and momentum he needed through. And a little bit of all the hard work unraveled like a ball of yarn running down a hill. But Matuszka trying to regather it lap after lap now.
Yeah, absolutely. Wolf really showing his pace ahead of the Camaro, but I mean, he's fighting defensively with that fancy footwork there, and is able to shake him off even when he takes the inside. Or even goes wide, is still ahead of Matuszka. So I mean, like, that's just showing some pretty impressive defensive driving when he seems to be lacking a little bit of the pace, as we see another GT3 car kind of rip through that battle. And it's funny to see that kind of shake it up almost every single time that another GT3 car goes by. Actually, he's going to have the top end coming through, tries to go wide, but the 70 Camaro, just
Nick, he's
hold.
trying.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just he seems to have the pace, but just he doesn't quite have the line coming through the corners, as Callie's going to hold the inside of that one, and then the outside. I think this is Wolf trying to pull away from him, because he knows if he's even remotely in his way, he's going to lose it again. Does grab that ground, the cone goes flying, and Wolf does take first position in the GT4 class for now, with just a little over 30 minutes to go in this race, and that is exactly where Matuszka wants to be.
Great bit of space being given by both. And Makuli now has a look on the inside there of Kujala in the Camaro. The Ginetta tries to get on by. Through the loop they'll go. Inside line will be there, but there is also that AMG GT4 of Felix in the background of this shot here. So Matuszka holds down the class lead for GT4s. Kujala in that number 78 Camaro is in second. Makuli in the Ginetta, the number 20, is in third, and Felix, the number 88 AMG, in fourth. So, I mean, really close driving with the last 30 minutes heating up. Yeah, Makuli all over the back of Kujala. That number 78 Camaro needs to do big work to hold back the agility of the Ginetta coming through. You see him kind of struggling with a little bit of understeer coming out the exit of Laffield, but again, using a little bit more of his top end. Not really the best top end in GT4s, but compared to the Ginetta, probably a little bit more through there. But Matuszka most certainly got through here, found his favorite shoes, and has gone for a jog, because he's left these two to battle in their own sort of league here, and that will be the battle for second and third in class.
Yeah, as we just see Andre Felix here in the AMG, who's been quite racy as well today. He's come in for his pit stop, so be interested to see if the rest of the GT4 class do that, as I believe Kopf there in the GT3 class, currently P10, he's also in the pits as well. But here you can see the Ginetta effect. Even with the slipstream, even with the better exit, it just doesn't have the pace to get to those braking zones. But it should be good here through Stowe, maybe to come down into Vale. But it's such a shame. But the balance of performance is working here. It's still keeping it competitive with with the quicker cars. But yeah, we should see him kind of close up now in the next couple of corners. But yeah, Kallio Kajala is doing a great job there. But like you said earlier, George, you know, Wolf has decided, yeah, he's had enough now. He wants to just get on with it. We can still see him in the shot, but yeah, he's got a 1.4, so you know, pretty much a 1.5 second lead at the moment. But here comes the Ginetta. Oh no, it doesn't. We go back to Martin Lawrence, who's actually still got Sundstrom behind him in the V12 Aston. And he's actually P4 now because I think one of the Bentleys, I think it's that, is it Lemke? I don't know, the 379 Bentley.
That was him.
Yeah, I think he pitted, so that's promoted obviously Martin Lawrence up to 4th. So he's not doing too bad for the, you know, in the old girl, shall we say, in the old Aston. So he's doing a stellar job, and yeah, it's great to see, you know, an old British car, you know, doing well at Silverstone. And obviously we've got Marcus Lawrence leading the way as well. And that's also another thing. So we've got 2 surnames, we say the same, spelt completely different. So that's always a challenge as well for a commentator. But Marcus Lawrence doing a stellar job. 6.9 second lead now over Muthen. You know, it's not a done deal because it's, you know, it's one mistake. And there you go. You could see Marcus Lawrence there just about to take Stowe Corner as Muthen joins the hangar straight. There you go. There's the shot. So it's not actually too much in it, but it'll all come down to obviously what the strategies are. Obviously, did everybody get the message? Did they not? You know, I'd imagine if you were even with a mandatory pit stop for a GT3, you probably would have fueled up all the way anyway. You probably would have just gone in for a splash because I don't think tyres were mandatory, were they?
No, they weren't. You would have probably gone in for your
yeah, you probably just would have done a splash, I imagine. You know, make the pit stop as short as you can. But yeah, it'd be nice to see if this Ginetta can get past the Camaro there. But he's definitely not close enough this time as we go on board. So let's just listen to some of the downshift here in the Ginetta.
That is pretty nice.
Yeah, Nick, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm gonna let the Ginetta have the downshift award for now. Its upshifts sound good too, but it does definitely have a little bit of something special. You know, every car has its little uniqueness to it, and I definitely like McCready's choice pick here. Does look again pretty small. I've commented on things like this before. When you see the Camaro versus the Alpine out on track, they look completely outside. Oh, we see the V12 going around to the outside, of course, of Lawrence as they make their way through. That's, of course, a battle for position for GT3s and GT4s. A little bit of rubbing against the outside of the Camaro there. This is, of course, that battle on track for position. So our GT4 is trying to give some room through as now they will get by as Phil Witt's also going to try and slot through. It looks like the biggest winner out of all of that would have, of course, been Kallio in the Camaro. He sort of had McCooley all over the back of him just before that battle started out, and the GT3s getting through definitely helped him get a little bit of breathing space. Of course, McCooley is going to heat up and try and get back to where he was, but great bit of driving coming out from the number 78. You know, had to be very defensive. I found himself in a position that, you know, he wasn't meant to be in early on. We saw the Dedicek and Matushka having a bit of a mistake coming through, which then allowed Kujala to run up to the front. But it then, of course, was caught up eventually by Matushka, and arguably took a longer time than I thought would happen. So based on his lap times, did a great job. And he again is going to have some pressure of one of the 720S's in the GT3 class behind him. And that's just, you know, I love that in GT3 racing. Mixed class racing, GT3s and GT4s on track, guys with, of course, better cars going to try and get by as quick as possible, and the GT4 is trying to give them as much space. It's a beautiful sight to behold.
Yeah, it certainly is, and you could also say a winner out of all that was also Martin Lawrence, because he seemed to pull away from Sundstrom, and it's backed Sundstrom into Phil Witt now, and you know, I've said this a couple of times, but he seems to be on a mission at the moment. But has the Audi got the pace on the BMW as they go very, very close here through Abbey and then Farm Curve? So, but the BMW seemed to hold it in, you know, a little bit more there. So he probably kept his foot flat to the floor, whereas Phil Witt obviously probably didn't want to run into the back of him there. So yeah, I think Phil Witt, I believe, are they the same team name as is that Wolf Machuska's, you know, GT3 brother, shall we say?
They are often racing in teams together. not often racing in different car classes because they haven't been able to, but here where they were allowed to represent only one team, it's one team, one driver in one class, they definitely went and spread their pink love all over the place in being able to pick both Audis in
it
GT3
keeps
and
confusing
GT4.
me because I'm so used to seeing this Audi and Wolf Machushka driving it. I was a bit like, well, you know, is Phil Vitt gone to his garage and stolen Machushka's car or something? Because yeah, and then I just seen the team name, and it's only taken me what 40 minutes to realise that. But yeah, you know, most observant commentator here. So
no, but
yeah,
to be honest, I mean, they are similar looking. It's I mean the GT4 variant of the GT3 Audi. I mean, it's a smaller mini-me looking Audi TT version. It's painted the same colors, and at a glance, you wouldn't really expect them to be. You know, there we go. We see Wolf Machushka suddenly change to in view. So his teammate disappears. We see mini-me come through. Wolf Machushka holding down 16th overall, currently leading the GT4 class.
Mini-me.
But indeed, mini-me indeed.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, it's basically, you know, it's just obviously it's a lot smaller rear wing for a start, but Phil Vitt's using that rear wing to full effect there at Stowe, as now they're going to go side by side. Is he going to make the move this time? As they go side by side, the Aston Martin needs to just stay out of the way of the big BMW there, and Phil Vitt does get the move done. Now, can he hold on to it for the next, you know, couple of corners? It looks like he will. He seems to have had a much better exit there than Sundstrom, so Martin Lawrence has a new challenger. I don't know if Phil Vitt's actually taken on the, what was it, the towing the battlefield around or something we were calling it earlier on. So I think Phil Vitt is next to walk into the ring. So
Exactly. But I mean, just past the BMW so quickly through there, it just goes to show, like, if you lose just a little bit of pace through these corners, in the GT3 class, you can just be punished for it. And is going to try to fight for some ground to the back of Lawrence, but he is holding on confidently to position 4 now. So it'll be interesting to see how this shakes out.
I mean, that braking maneuver coming out from the number 303 piloted by Phil Vitt was just incredible. So late on the brakes coming down into Vale. Obviously the inside line being held by Sundstrom, but being passed around the outside. Collision together. Kopf has had a collision with Reisner, as we'll get a little action-packed replay. Trying to have a little look on the inside here and catches the back end. I don't think that the Aston Martin was quite aware that Kopf was quite so close. I don't think he really closed the door too much. Kopf very brave to try and have a look in through Abbey. You know, not having the sort of racing line, you would kind of swing over from the left to the right, but yeah, bit of a contact getting caught on camera, nothing too catastrophic.
So George, obviously we were giving, we give Harry, I think it was Harry Conway, an award for the way he styled his accident earlier on. Did we just see the way Reisner just sort of shrugged that off, completely Tokyo Drift style through Kopf's corner, and then just carried on as if nothing had happened?
Yeah, he pretty much was like, you know, when you're at the mall trying to impress your mates, and you know, you walk in and you had a big trip up and suddenly you've fallen, but you're doing the worm now through the elevator doors.
That's it. That is the
exactly
ACC version of that. That is exactly that. But there you go. There's a GT4 Porsche on screen for you, George. So I'll let you enjoy this.
Yeah.
GT4, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, you're right. The GT4 came through. I mean, GT3 Porsche, GT4 Porsche. I'm just like, what a magpie seeing shiny objects as soon as a Porsche gets flashed on screen. So Wesley de Winter going to pilot the number 13 around, currently holding down 21st place. He is coming up to the back of Wagner, of course, in car class battle. You know, he's trying to find something on the back of that Camaro, but definitely a bit of a roller coaster ride coming through the exit of Chapel. So much curb being used by the GT4 Porsche, and now looking onto the brakes, not going to be in a zone to really do too much up against Wagner's Camaro ahead of him, but going on through Stowe towards Vale. It looks like he will be caught up by our leader, of course, who gets on by. Lawrence will slide through this battle, not going to be affected too much, but a lot of pace being carried by the 13 coming through Vale, as he now seems to have carried a lot through Club as well. Down towards Abbey will have a little bit of slipstream effect as well, but will not want to have a look down the inside, and most certainly doesn't have the position to do so just yet. So not too much heating up from those two. We switch back to the battle, which will be here till the end of time. 19 minutes is not enough as we see Sundstrom taking a scenic route through Chapel. And Lawrence in his V12 Aston screams down the hangar straight, as cool as a cucumber. He's not had too much pressure from any drivers coming up behind him. Arguably in the better cars, this man is the better driver on track on time, because nobody can get past the defensive positioning of that V12.
Well, it looks like Phil Vitt had a go and obviously failed, as he's dropped down to P6. So I don't know if maybe the arena that is the rear end of that V12 Aston sort of took the most.
You know
out
what?
of
I've got a
car
theory,
as well.
right, Josh? And it's a bit of a conspiracy theory. I want you and Nick to hear me out, right?
I'm in on it. Let's go.
I rate that the sound of the V12 makes such a high-pitched screaming sound that it affects with all the finicky electronics and all the sort of not so cool old generation GT3s that are modern and have electronics and cool things like that. So I think the scream, as soon as they get close, it has like an interference level and they just feel intimidated.
So I guess we'll have to update our screen. It reads Martin Lawrence. We'll have to add a nickname in the center that is Siren, as he's using a V12 scream to kind of beat people off the back of them. So that is
in
excellent theory.
Jurassic Park, how do you identify dinosaurs? By the sound that they're making. If it's a little squeak, it's not scary.
No,
If it's a
George,
big
I would
screaming
agree
roar,
with you if the car was Italian behind, because they have notoriously bad electronics. But a BMW is a piece of engineering. I don't know if maybe I think they've probably got some sort of jammer on there so they can't interfere with the electronics myself, because Sundstrom seems to sit there the whole time.
Josh, I'm gonna need you to be careful there for a second. You're over
true.
here insulting Ferraris and Lamborghinis.
Potentially things
Yeah.
are going to be okay. It's okay to insult the Italian cars, Josh. Go ahead and do it. I'm okay with it.
Look, I'm a
Ryan's
Ferrari
not here to
fanboy.
defend them.
I've driven the Ferrari for 2 seasons in this game. I absolutely love the Ferrari, but you can't help but say their electronics are really bad, and that's why I think the Maserati didn't make it to the GT4 race today, because it probably rusted on the boat on the way over. So that's probably why it didn't make it for the race. So maybe when we do Monza, it doesn't have to go on a boat, so the Maserati could actually make an appearance at this for the GT4 multi-class.
I like Josh. He shoots fires at the Italian cars, which most of my co-commentators normally love the most.
I will say,
so
though, Bart is disagreeing with you in the
okay.
chat, George. Bart himself is saying that he disagrees with it. He just thinks that he's very, very talented.
I think that talent trumps everything, right?
But
It's all
that's
about
why it's a
talent.
conspiracy. It's you can be involved in it if you want. You don't have to be. It's the whole UFO thing, but just ACC style. And I think we're onto something, yeah.
Yeah,
Flat,
absolutely.
Flat V12, whatever you want to talk about. Flat sixes.
Yeah, McWillie on screen, try to fight for some ground ahead of that Camaro. The Ginetta is just a popular talking point for us, just because it has so many interesting facts about it. It seems to lose speed. Actually, he's going to go for the inside corner. He's actually going to try to get past Kallio, and is going to be fighting for it side by side down at the straight. It's going to be interesting as we see the Honda and the Porsche go by on the right. Not going to shake his road. Just the passes, the inter-class passes are so intense to watch on screen. And the Ginetta is going to fight for that ground and get ahead of the 78 Camaro. That is exactly the opening that he was looking for and has fought for it. But yeah, while we're talking about the Ginetta, yes, it might lack some speed in the straights, but the downshifting sound is very intimidating and awesome. As Kallio is deciding that he's not done with this particular thing, is going to take the wide outside with a lot of speed, hits the braking point a little late, and fights for the inside again. And he's actually going to take it right back. This is insane to watch. The Ginetta seems to be not shaking out in those big sweeping corners. The Camaro can just come ripping through them with a later braking point a bit, and then it's just fighting. And look how much of a gap he's already made. That was intense driving from the 78 Chevy there.
It's such a shame the Ginetta is so slow in a straight line.
Yeah, I mean that was one of the things I was going to also point out. It's sad that it just loses out there, but I mean the driving style coming out from our two GT3 drivers to just kind of send it up through Abbey. Two GT4s fighting it out on track, giving enough room to allow the GT3s to get by without them affecting it. That was, of course, I believe, the guys on track at the moment. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was Franchel and, of course, Kopf in that Porsche. They've switched up positions as well. But, I mean, they were fighting on track. They didn't want to get impacted by the GT4s. They decided to send it in through Abbey, which, you know, took a little bit more curb than they probably would have liked to see. But both cars came out and settled. And Macaulay and Kujala are going side by side through Vale now as they get through. And again, it looks like Macaulay going to have the inside line, going to get the drive on by. And the Camaro will be seated back once again to hold and try and fight back again. Moving out of the way for the GT3 to get on by as Kujala sees the wide run from the Ginetta, but because the GT4s are a little bit high, doesn't lose too much speed, but will be on the inside coming down to Village. They are going to go side by side through the loop as well. Inside line for the Ginetta. The number 20 doing a great job to hold the Camaro back. Mistake being made, losing a lot of speed, of course, coming into that complex of corners. But now, once they've slowed back down, the run will come out from the Camaro. Just look at the straight line speed coming down. They drag race down the Wellington straights. And again, the Ginetta has left, or going to leave this, I believe, for the Camaro to try and seat himself. And he's going to try and see if he can have a look back and make the Camaro make the mistake as... yeah, Kujala there doing a great job to hold off. Macaulay is not going to be able to fight back just yet. But, I mean, these two cars, 13 minutes left to go. I don't see them just giving up the battle. They're waiting to see who folds first.
Yeah, but between these two cars, I mean, Macaulay has to be perfect to get ahead of the 78 Chevy. Just... and we can see that on screen. Every little bump, he loses a little bit of speed when the Ginetta has to fight for speed so hard. In comparison to the Camaro that can just slingshot out of these corners and hold that straight line speed, the Ginetta is absolutely punished every time that even the slightest mistake is made.
Yeah, you know, it's a shame, but it's good because it's given us a lot to talk about, and the way that these guys have been throwing it side by side for the last, you know, 4 or 5 laps, probably even longer than that. But you know, we've been following them for the last couple of laps. As you could just see the absolute difference in apex speed that Ginetta has. Look how close he gets through this section here. But you can imagine at a track like Laguna, for example, you'd like to think the Camaro would have no chance, but. You know, these cars are so competitive. The only one I do feel sorry for is the KTM, which I know is very, very, you know, slow, shall we say. I think it's the worst accelerating car there is, but it handles so well. So, you know, it's in a one-off race like this. I guess you can pick your car depending on the track. As we see now, the Ginetta going to get nice and close again, but I don't think he'll be attacking him down into the braking zone. I think the Camaro would just pull away from him.
That's some of the braking stuff, right? In the GT4s, you can really sort of slam on the brakes in some of them. You know, not all of them really yield to that. The GT3s are more of a ease onto the brake pedal, but you see those GT4s, they can kind of wait till the very last minute to get onto their brakes for their braking point, slam them on, and not worry too much about the car not slowing itself down if that's what their car is able to do. Not all of them obviously have that sort of feat, but the battle on track again, that's just not slowed down at all, is Martin Lawrence and Mikhail Sandstrom side by side here. Mikhail Sandstrom might have got what he needs to do, but he's going to be on the outside, and a little collision coming in and the tap coming through. Lawrence was side by side. Was the door closed down from Sandstrom? Not really. I think a little bit of contact coming together, a bit of a race incident coming through. I don't think that he's two-phased because the position has been given back from Lawrence there. He's handed the position to Sandstrom. So I believe the Aston Martin driver not quite happy about his mistake that he's made there and handed the position back over. You know, he felt like that was unfair on his side. And of course, that's just gentlemanly driving coming out from our pro splits, which means that Zeman gets himself up here to third place, the number 21 McLaren. I mean, I wanted to mention the McLaren. When it first came out, it was launched out for the Shadow Project, obviously when McLaren was looking for one of their fastest drivers, and they held that here at Silverstone. This McLaren used to be so overpowered. They had to get onto the BOP train quite hard. I mean, it ran almost 2 seconds faster than any other car in the GT3 series ran at Silverstone at the time that it came out for the Shadow Project. So good to see that after BOP, there is going to still be a McLaren towards the front end. Currently Zeman holding on to 3rd place on the podium. We'll get a small bottle of champagne, not the biggest one, not as big as 2nd and 3rd, but you know, it's something to spray in someone else's eyes.
Champagne is champagne, pal. It doesn't matter what size bottle it comes in. And I know at these motorsport events they don't really use the £3 prosecco from you know, Aldi or Lidl or something. You know, it's always very expensive champagne. As now we go back to the Ginetta and the Camaro of Joe McCauley and Kallio Kujala as well. So there we go. The Ginetta's actually got the position, and it looks like he might have the inside line here for left field. So is he going to actually be able to keep it and maybe pull out a little bit through Maggotts and Beckett? But you can just see just the torque just pulling the Camaro right back onto the back of him. And as he's catched the gravel, and he's almost gone into the pits, but that's the end of pretty much that battle. Not the end of his race. He did get away with it as we go on board for the little mistake here. He's just dropped the rear left wheel into the gravel trap there. And
I'm going to give that one a 2 because he did make contact with the wall, Josh.
Okay. That's fair enough. That's fair enough. Yeah, I'd give it a 2 as well. It wasn't quite stylish enough to go, oh my god, you know, that was incredible. But he's also ruined our fun for the last 8 minutes because that was a great scrap. But in the meanwhile, Sundstrom, and that's Zeman going into the pits with 8 minutes to go. So he's obviously run out of fuel. I know the McLaren can be rather selfish on fuel.
I mean, 75 minutes is a long stint to run in the GT3s without having to do a little bit of fuel saving on your map inside. You know, you are going to be pushing it quite hard anyway, so these guys are all having to, I'm sure, do a good job out on track to sort of manage that side of things. Sundstrom here, the number 899. Currently, if we look at his lap times, his last lap time that he did was a 201.63, which is you know, a couple seconds off. He might have had some traffic on track to deal with, but it will be interesting to see where Sundstrom's sort of lapping around. He's obviously gapped past Lawrence after their incidents, and he was let by. Lemke here in the 379 Bentley as well is under fire, I believe, from, was it Heinz that he's maybe got past here? I think it's Thiesing and Haynes behind him here. So it is going to be a battle for position. Lemke holding down 5th place, Thiesing in 6th, and Haynes in 7th. So it is a little bit of a Bentley sandwich with a hint of Porsche in the middle as a little bit of a topping. But for now, it's a really nice colored Bentley to be our focal point. Stefan Lemke, the 379 for T3 Esports. I like the paint job, a little bit of a different play on what is normally used as a traditional Union Jack skin. Josh, what do you think of retro Union Jack themed car?
Yeah, it looks great. I think there should be a petition to change the flag to that color. No,
I mean, we shouldn't, because the British people would legitimately vote to change it if they're given anything to vote on. Yeah,
that's it, mate. You put anything up for us.
Didn't you guys call the boat, the research boat that you did, the famous one, like really cool research boat, Boaty McBoatface?
That is exactly what happened, as Thiesing in the Porsche didn't want to be too close to the different coloured Union Jack there, so he's decided to go and go into the gravel for a bit. As we now cut back to De Winter there in the Cayman GT4 on the back of Billy Octane. So we've seen a little bit of this Porsche and Billy Octane's Audi as well, but with 5 minutes to go, let's see if they can provide something. So let's see how the Cayman can do through Maggotts and Beckett's, because earlier on we looked at it and it didn't look like the nicest thing to drive through there, I've got to be honest. And George, don't shout at me, but it didn't look as stable as some of the other cars we've seen go through there. But he looks like he's actually stitched it up a lot better this time, so he's actually keeping up with the Audi, and he's got a nice exit out of there as well. But I'm not big up on what's fast down the straight and what's not, but that looks pretty close so far, coming down towards Stoke Corner. So can he get close enough to him to make a move? Let's see. The slipstream effect obviously shouldn't be as strong in the GT4s, obviously, because less aero, so obviously the air isn't as disturbed anyway. So, but the Cayman's going to come back at him now, but I think he's a little bit too far back on this lap. But I'd be interested to see if he can get it done before the end of the race.
I have to say the GT4 Porsche is it's cute. Like, it's so small and soft looking. It looks like an egg to me. I mean, it's still an awesome looking car, but it just looks so soft
Nick,
compared
George
to
is
its
still
big
here. He hasn't gone yet.
I know.
Nick,
I'm glad that he's not going to buy a plane ticket to come beat me up over
I
that.
can see the tears.
It's just the
from
only
here,
word that comes to mind at this point.
I mean, if the rand dollar was less not in my favor, I might have to get that plane ticket. But you know, the cute GT4 Cayman really gets onto the back of the not so cute Audi as they go through the back end of the loop, and it does look like, unfortunately, the 333 is going to sort of get a little bit away from De Winter there. He did do a great job to get later on the brakes coming down into Village, but better exit coming out from Octane down Wellington. And of course, with all the straight speed that you can try and get in the GT4s, you really want to get all your exits perfect. You do have the ability to kind of correct things, you know, mid-corner in the GT4s, whereas the GT3 is a little bit more punishing. But yeah, if you do have to do that, you are going to compromise your speed. So a little bit more forgiving in the corners, but in doing so, just look how much higher that Audi rides as well. You can almost see straight under it and see the diffuser of the Porsche from behind. But of course, the battle for fourth place in GT4 still continues. 3 minutes and 22 minutes remain for this race segment as we switch back to Marcus Lawrence for PCDC. The number 29 Bentley, not featured enough, not talked enough about on stream, because you know he's actually just run away from the field up at the front. Muthen in second place has not quite contested things. The GT3 pack has been sort of spread out near the front, but Sundstrom has definitely given us a little bit of action. Of course, he was struggling to get past Lawrence's V12 Aston, but holds down third place in that 899 BMW. And up into first place we go for the GT4s. Ulf Matuszka in the splash of pink. Muka Motorsport 25 is doing a great job to hold down first place. 16th overall, second place in GT4, 17th overall. Kallio Kujala, the 78 Camaro for Team Cent, doing a great job to hold second place. And then we go over to Joe Makudi in that number 20 Janetta, 18th overall and the third in class. Like I said, small bottle of champagne, but champagne is champagne.
It certainly is, and he's had to work for it in Argenetta. He has been, he has been all over everyone. He's got his hands on, and I think that's actually Lemp getting past Martin Lawrence in the V12 Aston. So looks like Lawrence has lost a few places after having the contact with Sundstrom, and yeah, obviously being a V12, he's probably had to change his engine map to save a little bit of fuel. But you know, he's had a great race, and P6, if he can hold on to it, is nothing to be ashamed of in the pro split. I know I'd be happy with it if I could put a V12 Aston in P6 anyway. But yeah, Lemke in the alternate Union Jack colours there. Yeah, he's had a great race. He's running pretty well. But yeah, like you said, we haven't really spoke about Marcus Lawrence a great deal, but that's kind of what happens when you lead from the front, so like commanding. You don't get talked about too much, but he's actually gone into the pits. But I think Muthen has already pitted, so I hope he's got enough gap, because he doesn't deserve the race lead to be taken away from him. But I believe he's got enough gap.
Yeah, so we do get to switch over to that, Josh. As you said, we've been going in for a little splash and dash. I believe, Lawrence going in for that splash and dash. Muthen's still out on track. That gap should have been enough space. Yes, it will be. Muthen is going to come around the back end of Lefield, which will let Lawrence get out and maintain first place, but certainly close down the delta between them. Matuszka still holds down first place for the GT4s, and he will be, of course, on his final lap as well after this lap finishes off. So Matuszka, well, will he finish the race here if the GT3 is on the last lap? No, he has to go around again, I think. He has to go around one more time. So overall leader must finish the race, then the cars beyond will finish up regardless of the lap differentials. Of course, our leaders have done 37 laps here. Lawrence on his 37th lap, and Matushka currently on his 34th lap. So a little bit of lap difference, obviously, with the cars, a little bit of squiggly coming out from Matushka as well, as I believe it also sounds like he's doing a little bit of fuel saving, not driving the beans off of his Audi as you would expect. So with Kujala has enough fuel to maybe catch up, and Matushka has to slow things down, it most certainly does look like he's struggling with this GT4, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely does. I don't know how, I haven't experienced the GT4s enough, but I don't know how they use their tyres. Obviously, I know you can have a bit more loose moments in the GT4s, which is obviously scrub the tyres off as well. But Marcus Lawrence now, he's got 3 more corners pretty much to get right now to take the race win here at the first, I believe, RCI multi-class race, which has been nothing short of exciting, as he weaves his way through some GT4s just to show you this is how we win. So they basically created another corner there for him. They let him past, almost like a guard of honor almost. And Marcus Lawrence puts his hazard lights on and he wins here at Silverstone today. He will be over the moon with that. I'm sure he will be messaging me later on to tell me, hope you watched my race win, as we see a BMW just decide to go flying off there. And now we're on Wolf Machuska, our class leader in the GT4s, and he has had a stellar race as well. He's been involved in all sorts of scraps and fights, and he's pulled off some great overtakes, George.
Absolutely. Mutin will cross the line for second in the GT3 class, and Wolf Matushka will be our on-board following. Nope, we'll scrap that for Sundstrom, who of course will be our final podium coming through before our GT4 class leader finishes up. So Mikhail Sundstrom, the 899 BMW, will mix up our podium. Of course, we'll see 3 different manufacturers come out here: Bentley, Porsche, and finally BMW onto 3rd place of the podium here. Mikhail Sundstrom views as we get a nice little view of the finishing line coming through. We see 4th place go through to Thissing, Lemp go over in 5th place, and we see Lawrence's V12 Aston come through. We're waiting to see Wolf Matushka come through in that pink Audi to take the win in the GT4s, but I think he's already done it off camera. And he's now coming around. Here he goes. There we see Matushka go through the final line. So in the GT4 class, Matushka, Kujala, and Macaulay are your front 3 finishers. And absolute incredible racing as Froschel crosses over the line, and Zeman does the same for 10th in GT3.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent racing in both classes. Made for a very exciting broadcast. I have to say, I absolutely love, as we get to see a little demo of everyone throwing some donuts in the sand trap there for us. Marcus Lawrence obviously having an incredible race. Took pole position in qualify and just left the pack, and that was end of story for the win in the GT3 class. Wolf Matushka had to fight a little closer to tooth and nail to get that win in the GT4 class, but also a solid win from Wolf Matushka, and that made for a excellent multi-class race that we got to watch.
Yeah, Nick, that was a really awesome race to watch. It kept me busy all race long, working these cameras, constantly looking for those gaps. Of course, that 5-car battle going on with GT4 was super exciting throughout that, 30 minutes of time or so that was going on. As George said a couple times, unfortunately, the pit stops, I'm going to be honest, guys, I don't quite know why it wasn't working. The event rules file was set up, so I'm sure it's a discussion we'll have on Discord, but, good on the drivers to kind of, keep on and doing what they were doing. That was very awesome. So, yeah, guys, excellent race today. Of course, keep in mind, Thursday, multi-class race starting, I believe, at Misano. I could be wrong on that. That will come to you on Thursday. I believe Ryan Gill, Nick Setnick, and a guest commentator named Paul Glover from Race Department, if you guys don't recognize him, will be bringing you that Thursday race. So look forward to that. We will have pro and am splits for that championship. I believe it will run 5 total races. Excellent race today, guys. Very, very good race to watch. Hope you guys have enjoyed as well. Give us a subscribe. We have our 6 hours of Barcelona coming up on August 1st. We will have some prizes hopefully to hand out there. Sponsored by AK Informatica this coming weekend. We will get information up on that on Discord. You can find a link below in the description of this video. In the meantime, hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Excellent race to watch, and we'll see you next time.